The friendship between Captain Marvel and Iron Man is one of the most underrated dynamics in all of Marvel Comics. Tony Stark and Carol Danvers have been close platonic friends for nearly 3 decades now, and their bond stands out because of how deeply personal it is. At its core, their friendship is built on shared struggles with alcoholism and the way they help each other overcome it. Their friendship balances humor and sincerity perfectly. They constantly tease each other and engage in witty banter, but when things get serious, they are the first to be there for one another. In this video, I want to explore how their friendship began, how it evolved over time, and how it was nearly destroyed by one terrible storyline before ultimately being restored. To understand their connection, it helps to first look at their individual histories. In the late 1970s, Tony Stark struggled with alcoholism, which led to the iconic Demon in a Bottle storyline. His fall and recovery became one of the most defining aspects of his character. From that point on, Tony was firmly established as a recovering alcoholic, and that experience shaped how he viewed both himself and others. Carol Danvers also had a complicated relationship with alcohol. She grew up with an abusive alcoholic father who made her feel unwanted in life. Because of that, Carol spent much of her life determined not to become anything like him. Although Tony and Carol had crossed paths before as Avengers and in their civilian identities, they were never especially close. Their real friendship did not begin until the late 1990s. By then, Carol had gone through an overwhelming number of traumatic experiences. She had been manipulated into a relationship, lost her powers and memories to Rogue, rebuilt herself as binary, only to lose those powers as well. Determined to prove she still belonged with the Avengers, she pushed herself too hard and began drinking to cope with it. Tony immediately recognized the signs of alcoholism. He had lived through the same struggle and could see what Carol was trying to hide from the people around her. At that time, he was still operating under a secret identity, but he chose to reveal that he was Iron Man in order to gain her trust. That moment marked the true beginning of their bond. Carol resisted him at every turn. She denied having a problem, rejected his offers to attend Alcoholics Anonymous, and tried to push him away. Meanwhile, her behavior became increasingly reckless. She hid the loss of her binary powers from the Avengers, putting others at risk, and eventually lashed out at her teammates before quitting the Avengers altogether. It's not until a horrible incident where Carol accidentally puts civilians in danger that Carol finally realizes just how bad her situation has gotten. She finally gives in and accepts Tony's help. The end of the wonderful Kurt Busiek Iron Man run features Carol attending an AA meeting at Tony's request. All of this creates a deep bond between the two of them. Tony even ends up becoming Carol's AA sponsor, and they slowly become even closer. Ever since that run, Carol and Tony have been portrayed as remarkably close friends. Of course, this is comics, so there are obviously going to be certain inconsistencies, but for the most part, writers tend to recognize that they are good friends. This comes into play during the original Civil War event, where Carol was one of the few to stand by Tony and support him even when most of his closest friends turned against him. Carol was the one who encouraged him to let go of his guilt over Captain America's death. Carol was Tony's first pick to lead the mighty Avengers team. He struggled to let go of being the leader, but it was clear that he had absolute trust in Carol and what she can do. This would remain the dynamic for years. Anytime something particularly traumatic or horrible happened to either of them, they would immediately check up on each other to make sure they didn't relapse. As superheroes, they go through a lot, so you can imagine that it happened quite frequently, even if we don't always get to see it. The next big turning point would come in probably the worst story Marvel has ever published, Civil War II. It's a shame that stories like this even exist. It's an abomination that sadly become popular and an excuse to hate Carol. I won't attempt to rationalize or justify anything in this story. The main Civil War II story is utter nonsense and a complete character assassination of Tony Stark and especially Carol Danvers. It also completely misrepresents their friendship to justify an unnecessary war. But weirdly enough, there is an excellent Civil War II tie-in story in Invincible Iron Man, which is genuinely touching. It's so weird because it's written by the same person who wrote the main Civil War II story, but it acknowledges their friendship and their trust in each other. The entire issue is about Tony and Carol having a conversation after accidentally going to the same AA building and how their argument has driven both of them towards the brink of relapse. They talk about how they're struggling to not have a drink considering recent stressful events, and how not being able to reach out and talk to each other like they normally do makes it even worse. It's a thoughtful, incredible story despite being part of Civil War II and so much better than anything that came out of the main story. Thankfully, most writers in Marvel recognized that Civil War 2 was horrible and it was quickly ignored. The friendship between Carol and Tony was slowly rebuilt. They had a lot of excellent interactions in the recent Avengers one by Jet McKay. Carol picking Tony as her first choice after being elected the new Avengers leader was beautiful and a great callback to their mighty Avengers days. Tony comforting Carol for Father's Day is a simple moment but so impactful considering how they've both managed to become who they are despite dealing with horrible fathers. Superhero comics tend to have a lot of romances, which is why having a great platonic friendship like this matters a lot. It's surprising and refreshing how they've been consistently portrayed as friends since the 90s without it ever turning into anything more than that. Carol and Tony have both been through the worst and have come out the better for it. They'll spend the rest of their life avoiding the temptation of the bottle, but they'll rest easy knowing that they have somebody they can trust in their corner. Somebody who understands the same struggle and the same temptations to let go of everything and bury yourself in alcohol. It's a unique bond between them that they will never forget as long as they live. I hope we get an adaptation in the future which brings more eyeballs to this wonderful dynamic between Tony and Carol. Also, I really love that Tony calls Carol Space Space. It's such a hilarious nickname and it works so well for Carol.